Rumors of rebellion are starting to swirl around the palace. A border province has risen up in Evren's name, and Kael's council is pushing for immediate action. But Kael holds back. He opts for patience. In a private meeting, he confronts Evren, demanding to know if he's involved. Evren firmly denies it. The map table was a chaotic mess of red ink, all pointing to the same whispered name, Evren Aurelian. Kael stood at the head of the war chamber, listening to his council argue around him. "This is no longer just a symbol," Lord Vareth barked. "They're rallying under his name. They think he's gathering support. He hasn't even left the palace," Lady Saran shot back. "Unless he's sending messages out his window. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a legend that's gotten out of hand." Kael remained silent, his gaze fixed on the curved ink line marking the river Ralon, the epicenter of the unrest. "Your silence looks like guilt," Vareth snapped. "Your mercy is just fueling this fire." Kael slowly raised his eyes. "I suggest," he replied calmly, "you stop confusing silence with weakness." The room fell silent. Saran let out a breath. "So what do we do now?" Kael studied the map for a moment longer, then simply stated, "Nothing." Gasps filled the room. Kael turned to face them. "If we crush this rebellion, we give it power. Let them shout, let them believe. They'll perish for ideals they've created." He walked out before they could argue further. Evren was already waiting in Kael's private chambers when he arrived. He'd seen the red ink on the reports and heard the whispers echoing in the halls. Kael didn't say anything at first. He walked over to the decanter, poured 2 drinks, and handed one to Evren. Evren accepted it but didn't take a sip. Finally, Kael asked, "Is it you?" Evren met his gaze. "No, not even a whisper." Evren's voice remained calm. "I haven't said a word. I haven't sent anyone." Kael watched him intently for a long moment. Then he said, "They're rallying for a ghost, not a prince." Evren's eyes narrowed. "And that frightens you?" Kael didn't argue. He gulped down his drink in one go. Then he added, "Come with me." Evren didn't question where they were headed. He simply followed. The path down was narrow and steep. Kael guided him through a side corridor tucked behind the throne room, maneuvering past a cleverly disguised stone panel that required some effort to shift. Dust billowed out as the hidden passage swung open. Evren followed quietly. The stairs spiraled downward, extending deeper than he had imagined the palace would go. The air turned cooler and more still, the ancient stone walls closing in around them, thick with history and memories. They finally reached the bottom. Kael pushed open a second door, heavy and reinforced with iron. Inside was a small chamber hewn from raw stone. There were no windows, just a table, 2 chairs, a shelf lined with ledgers, and a half-burned torch flickering on the wall. Evren stepped inside. "This is where you hide?" he asked. "This is where my father sought refuge when the court tried to poison him," Kael replied. "No one comes here anymore." Evren approached the table, running his fingers along the groove in the wood. "Why bring me here?" Kael shut the door behind them. "Because up there I can't speak freely, not without facing consequences." Evren turned to him. "And here?" "Here," Kael said, "we can speak the truth." Evren let the silence hang between them. Then, without flinching, he said, "You've become everything you once despised." Kael let out a short, bitter laugh. "You think I'm unaware of that? You talk about peace while your empire is tearing itself apart. You act like mercy is a tactic, and you act like you don't enjoy being desired." That hit home. Evren took a slow breath. Kael stepped closer. "I've given you every opportunity to kill me," he said, "and you haven't." Evren didn't back away. "You think that means something?" Kael's voice lowered. "It means everything." They stood just a breath apart now. The stone room was devoid of warmth, but the space between them, tight, tense, and trembling, was starting to ignite. Evren's breath hitched in his throat, not because of the biting cold air, but because Kael stood there, unmoving. He didn't close the final inch between them, nor did he pull away. They were frozen in time, heat wrapped in silence, fury simmering behind clenched jaws and narrowed eyes. Then Evren broke the stillness, his voice low but cutting. "Do you think I want this?" Kael's reply was sharp as flint. "No, I think you need it." In that moment, everything shifted. Evren was the first to act. He grabbed the collar of Kael's coat, yanking him forward, their lips crashing together without grace or permission. Just pure fire. Kael didn't hold back. He matched Evren's intensity. His hands found their way to Evren's waist, then slid up his back, pinning him against the stone wall, their mouths colliding again like two armies in battle. It wasn't tender. It wasn't cautious. They kissed like soldiers who had lost their way, like men who were desperate for something they couldn't dare to acknowledge. Fingers tangled in fabric, breaths caught and swallowed. A groan escaped. Evren couldn't tell if it was his or Kael's. Kael's hand gripped his jaw, not with gentleness. Evren bit down on his lip, trying to stifle the noise that threatened to spill out. This wasn't about giving in. This was survival in its rawest, most intimate form. It was desire stripped of reason. They touched as if it might be the last moment before betrayal, before bloodshed, before everything between them crumbled, and neither of them pulled away. Not until the fire within them finally cried out for air. The stone walls had lost their chill. Their breaths slowed, entwined in the heavy silence. Kael leaned against the wall, one arm casually draped over his knee. Evren lay next to him, flat on his back, hair damp with sweat, his gaze fixed on the dark ceiling above. Neither of them said a word. There were no words for what had just transpired between them. No script, no plan. Evren's shirt was tossed aside in a corner, while Kael's coat hung halfway off his shoulder. Dust danced in the torchlight, like the remnants of something that had quietly burned away. Evren turned his head just a bit. Kael was already looking at him. He didn't look away. Neither did Evren. This wasn't tenderness. This wasn't love. But it was something they could no longer brush aside. Kael shifted, slowly stood up, and grabbed his coat. "The council will be waiting," he said. Evren remained on the ground. "Let them wait." Kael offered a faint smile. No response came. He walked toward the door, paused, and said, "What happens next depends on what you want." Then he was gone. The door clicked shut softly, the sound of iron meeting stone. Evren didn't move. He watched the flickering torchlight, and for the first time, he couldn't tell if the fire inside him was desire, fear, or perhaps a mix of both.